Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
Hey, everybody, this is Scott Cowan, and today I am talking to Shana Danger and Mark Pahlow from Archie McPhee. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of you, I'll let you decide who, give us a little bit of the backstory of Archie McPhee and how it got started.
Well, I'm going to let Mark do that because he is the owner of the company and he started the company.
If you really want to go back to the book of Genesis, it probably started when I was like 8 years old with, I liked cool, weird things that I would see in the backs of comics, like X-ray specs and sea monkeys and all that kind of thing. And I was always interested in that. And I was also always interested in nostalgia and popular culture and these kind of things in everyday life that are part of the fabric of life, but people don't pay much attention to. And anyway, I had a variety of ridiculous businesses when I was small. You know, everything from charging a nickel to electrocute people. I would take
I want to ask you about that because I read that online.
That's one of my favorites.
We put the train transformer, which was like a real electrical device with a dial on it, and hooked wires up to an aluminum folding chair, and people would sit in it and they would get a shock as we turn it up. And
how old were you for that, Mark?
I was 8 or 9.
Underage 10.
Yeah, I had an older brother who was 6 years older, who was much more technical in terms of electricity and all that. But he was he was the nerd, he later went and got a degree in physics. I mean, he was a total science nerd. But we hooked that up, and I don't know. I just remember a guy named Neil from down the street that he put his feet on the metal bar, and we turned it way up, and he really got a shock. And he walked out.
Money worth.
He walked out of there kind of twitching. And I was just, it's just a good thing that these liability suits and all that stuff, this is like way far. This is like 1960. I mean, it's
a different stuff. World now.
Exactly.
The statute of limitations has run out.
But just to kind of bring it up to date. I mean, I was always interested in this stuff. I started in the 70s collecting cigar box labels and old toys and all of that. And I would do drive-aways where you would take somebody's nice car and deliver it. I would drive from LA to New York, and then I would stop in little drugstores. I remember great finds in Kansas and Nebraska on the state roads, and I would just buy all the toys from the drugstore because they were often made in Japan, and they were often, from the 50s, and they were never sold. They were mint condition, and they were on the shelf. They were dusty, but and then I would sell them in New York, and do it again and again, and it just moved along that way. And I had a mail order business, and eventually I moved to Seattle in 1982, put everything in a truck, and got a store next to a place called the Pink and Pretty Beauty Salon on Upper Fremont, and started there in a tiny space. The lady next door who owned the Pink and Pretty had some storage space, and I would store the pink flamingos there. It was very funky. And then it was just a series of finding places. And then we found a place in Lower Stoneway in the kind of frontier battle zone between Fremont and Wallingford,
Right. I remember that. I remember that area. I was in that location, I think.
That was the best location. It was really funky. We had wooden floors that were really old, and if you dropped something, it would go down into a crack and you'd never get it again. And it used to actually be a Chevy car dealer, and those doors would roll up and they'd bring in like the 36 Chevy kind of thing. It was actually a little funky car room show. And Shana will remember there was a guy we called Tar Pit Tony
Yeah.
in the basement who had a roofing business, and he had big vats of tar that he'd heat up, and the tar smell would come up through the floor. I mean,
we always, on hot days, we had to choose between having the window open and smelling the tar, or closing the windows and being too hot, because of course we didn't have any AC in that building. Then that's often the building that everybody remembers, but a lot of people don't know about the Pink and Pretty era of Archie McPhee. But the one on 35th and Stoneway is where I started.
So, Mark, what brought you to Seattle? What was the impetus to come up? Because Seattle was incredibly cool in the early 80s, so I could applaud you. But what was the motivation?
You'll find this amusing, but it was cheap real estate, because I had married in LA and realized that it would be impossible to buy a home, because LA was experiencing this incredible appreciation of real estate, and getting commercial space for a business was extremely expensive. And then it was also just wanting to raise a family and wanting to do it in Seattle, not LA.
Okay.
And so that's why.
Okay.
And it all worked out, and the
rest is history.
Yeah.
So, Shana, how long? So, when we talked earlier, you mentioned you've been working for Archie McPhee for 29 years.
Yeah, July will be my 29-year anniversary.
So, what's your version of the last 29 years? We got to start. Now, what you take us up kind of another decade. How about that?
Okay, so I started exactly as Mark said. The floor. I started with trying to clean out those floors. Everything had fallen into the cracks of. And at that time, it was a very tiny little store, just packed with stuff. And we were there for a good long time before then we moved to Ballard, and we were in Ballard for 10 years. And so, first of all, I'm going to talk about moving those things. That was insane, was moving that whole store into that bigger Ballard location. It was absolute madness. That was one of the bigger challenges ever for me. And then, in that little store, we had all kinds of things happen, like celebrities would come in, and we have our wall. We started our wall of fame back then, and we had some interesting events. Like we had, Mark, do you remember we had an ice cream social with Ben and Jerry? And Ben and Jerry, the actual people, Ben and Jerry, came. And they were introducing their new ice cream, which was Wavy Gravy. So Wavy Gravy, who a lot of people know from Woodstock, came also. And it was our tiny little store. I don't know how we would pull off these big events where there was these real people were showing up and like hula hooping and playing, with bubbles and giving out ice cream. That was one of our things at that store. And then we moved to Ballard, it was exciting, but also tear-filled, because we missed our little Stoneway store and we kind of became more well-known, I think, once we moved there. And also we started using, barcodes and everything else. It was fancy, but we never sold out because we still were super cool. And we continued to have tons of interesting events. So in Ballard, we had our Free Ballard movement, which was talking about we celebrated the 100 year of the actually it wasn't a celebration. It was more like trying to end the hegemony of the Ballard becoming annexed to Seattle 100 years before. So we had all kinds of games, like one of the rumors, because Seattle really wanted Ballard to be a part of it 100 years previous. And so one of the things that they had done, the rumor is that they befouled the drinking water in Ballard, so that you would have to join up with Seattle by putting a dead horse in it. So we had little games where we would like toss horse heads into water. It was like Befoul the Water was a game, and that kind of stuff. So we had a lot of things in Ballard. That was 10 years. We were there till 1999, I guess it would have been. No, 2009. 2009, we moved. Yeah, 1999 to 2009, we were in Ballard. And then 2009, we moved into Wallingford. And this time we were back on Stoneway at 45th and Stone. And this is the location where it's actually a really wonderful spot. We've included, now we have a lot more little experiences within the store. And of course, our biggest one is the Rubber Chicken Museum, which I'm sure we'll be talking about. But we have all kinds of things like the Glow Chamber, and we have Motog, the Talking Tiki, and we have Captain Archie, who gives out fortunes, and lots of little experiences like that.
An interesting sideline is our parallel life with the Washington State Liquor Board.
That's right.
In that the Ballard location was a Washington State liquor store when this state had controlled liquor sales.
Right.
And we took it over. But, unfortunately, for years after that, drunks and people would still stagger in trying to buy alcohol, and all we had
muscle
was
memory,
rubber chickens and things,
Yeah.
And but then we got the Wallingford place, and that was a Washington State liquor store as well. And they decided not to renew their lease, and we got that space. And that was a liquor store, and it had a liquor store vibe. And we even found, this was very cool, up kind of in the rafters up above the bathroom, little hidey holes with those tiny little bottles of liquor like you used to get on airlines, where I think the employees had taken them to the bathroom and chug-a-lugged them, and then they hid the bottles up in these little things in the rafters, So you walk into this whole historical and social kind of thing, and it was amusing.
And people kept accusing us of taking over taking over state liquor stores as if we were, outmaneuvering the state. It's like, no, they just didn't fulfill their lease, didn't want their leases anymore. So they were great locations, actually.
So, Mark, earlier before we pushed the record button, you were talking about COVID brain and all that. How are you guys adapting because at the time of this recording, we're graduating to, I think you guys, King County's in phase 2 now, so you can open again.
Yeah.
So stores are open. How's that? How are you guys navigating that? How's that for a retail business? How does that work for you guys? Are you having fun with it? I mean, I kind of think you guys would be irreverent somehow and not making fun of it, but making light of the situation.
We've actually been operating for a surprisingly long time. I mean, first we did curbside, which is absurd and ridiculous. You drive up and we run out with a rubber chicken, but we did that. We had curbside, and then we were just about ready to open what we called the Chicken Shack, which was, we opened the double doors at the back of the store, and we had built a little kind of like lemonade stand wooden thing called the Chicken Shack, where you could social distance, and we had tongs, and you could ask us for something, and we'd run into the store, and we'd come out and we'd hand it to you with tongs, and there was a little mobile credit card thing. That was amusing. I mean, all of that, and then we were finally able to open the store and allow 10 people at a time in. Now it's 24, and people are slowly coming back, but
okay.
It's very stressful. It's very hard to be masked and to do all of that stuff. And there's a lot of fear, and it's uncomfortable to work in a mask. We all know that. And there's a few, most 99% of the people are always fantastic. And there are a few jerks, if you don't have a mask, we will give you one.
Okay.
And we had a guy that said Sieg Heil because we asked him to wear a mask. I mean, it's so disappointing that this incredible health crisis has become politicized. I mean, that's another story, but it's open. We did it mainly. We're losing money hand over fist doing this. But we wanted to show the world that life will go on. And it made a lot of difference to a lot of people to start to see us open.
Yeah, and we actually had people call us and say, "Oh, I'm not calling to place an order. I just want to tell you I'm so happy that you're there." And we've had multiple people do that, and it's so cool to know what a big part of the community we are, and such a sign of joy that we are. And we are trying to, add this little piece of joy. Mark, you had said, people have been buying all the practical things. Everybody's buying flour and toilet paper and wipes and everything. And then at a certain point, people want a rubber chicken and a finger puppet. They just want something else. They want to spend money on something silly, and we're there for them. And as we were saying, you can actually literally call us up and we will curbside pick up a single finger puppet for you, little finger monster. It's $1, you can do that. So we're trying to create that little piece of joy there.
I think it's really awesome that you guys are doing curbside delivery. It's not financially functional. I get that. Roasting a coffee company in Spokane has been filming. People can drive by and they'll throw the coffee at them through the car as they move, and they're filming it and posting it on Facebook. And, the woman that's doing it's, behind her back, and she's getting very creative, and they're having fun with it.
Yeah.
And they're trying to, celebrate their clients, and the customers are coming out, and because they've got choices, right? And same thing here. You guys, you're bringing finger puppets to the car, curbside, finger puppet delivery. I mean, I don't think that was in your business plan ever, right?
No.
I don't think that was part of the, when you sat down with your banker back in the day and said, this is my plan for world domination. We're going to deliver finger puppets to cars.
Right.
I don't think that's what you were thinking.
We got to adapt though.
Right. And yeah, exactly. So let me ask both of you about the store. What's your favorite item that you sell? What's your favorite item? And Shana, you go first this time.
Of course. Mark gets more time to think about. Well, of course, being in this company so long, at least I go through phases of different things being my favorite. And I suppose now that I am, I have the title of the High Priestess of Rubber Chickens, and I think the classic rubber chicken has become my favorite item, even after all these years and all these different items. And the thing is that it's so ridiculous. It is absolutely the symbol of humor, but it's a ridiculous item. People don't know why it's funny. It just symbolizes being funny. And I love the history of novelties. I love the history of our type of business, and the classics. And so I will go with rubber chicken, even though sometimes I have other things that I'm more excited about at the time. But if you take the whole picture, I got to say rubber chickens. It represents us. It represents me. And we keep doing new things that you can squawk it, you can squeak it, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, but there's that classic is just, you just can't, it's undeniable.
And this is the perfect moment to mention that it was Shauna's idea a few years ago to, within the store, create the Rubber Chicken Museum. And that took about a year to develop. And I pulled all of these old chickens out of storage and got a lot of old material and tried to remember their stories. And we did this wonderful parody of a museum with the little information cards and the whole thing. And it was Shauna's idea, and it's wonderful. And we've been, we get donations of chicken items from people who want their thing to be in the museum. Like we got a rubber chicken that was from the NBC newsroom. That what was the story on that? Did it go into space or something? Or?
No, the MSNBC
another one.
That's a different one. But
okay.
But you're right. The MSNBC one was a really cool story of when MSNBC first came to our area, and when they first were doing an online presence, and so they had. It was 24-hour news, and it was cable news, and it was a new thing to them. And their newsroom had to figure out who was in charge because it was 24 hours. And so they put this thing where whoever had the rubber chicken was in charge for the day. And they did that for many, many years. And then eventually the chicken started to get kind of decomposed and everything. So they framed it as a symbol in their office. And and then they, then MSNBC became a much bigger thing and not local and everything else. But they contacted me, the person who had the chicken, and said they would love to have it in our museum, because what better place than a museum for that chicken? And it was really, really cool. They contacted some of the old MSNBC people. We did a live Facebook for them and showed them their old chicken. And we had around, 30 people showed up live, and then another 100 or so watched online as we dedicated the chicken and introduced it into the museum that they can visit anytime. And they had great stories that they were telling each other. So that's kind of one of our features in the museum. But what's so funny about the museum is, people think, ha, 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 rubber chicken museum, even friends of mine. But when you go there, it's actually really interesting to read the cards and see the stories. And we have lots of cool chickens and cool stories. And as Mark said, we have many donations. We've had people donate like a stained glass rubber chicken. And by the way, the word rubber chicken, it refers to that rubber chicken shape. We know that some things aren't actually made out of rubber, and they're still called rubber chickens. Because I get some sticklers sometimes who are like, well, that's not a rubber chicken, that's a glass chicken. No, rubber chicken is the style of chicken that it is.
So, all right. It was your idea to start a rubber chicken museum. Mm-hmm. You get credit for that.
Yes.
Free admission.
Free admission.
Don't
free
charge.
Admission.
Let's.
And we have that's right. Thank you.
Let's make sure that's clear.
That's right.
Okay. How did you get the inspiration? What was, why rubber chicken and not whoopee cushions or something,
Okay, so the original inspiration that I had was I went to Berlin and I went to this museum called, it was Museum de Dinge, D-I-N-G-E, Dinge,
okay.
The Museum of Things. And I read on Atlas Obscura what to do in Berlin, and I went to this cool museum that was up all these stairs, and it was just this bunch of rooms, and it was all these things put together in this very unusual way, sort of things that were alike. So maybe it would be doorbell buttons all together in a case, or piles of paper clips. And of course, one of my favorites, and Mark knows this, I've always loved the imagery on mouse traps, the little red mouse that's on a wooden mouse trap. I don't want to sell mouse traps. I don't want to get into the mouse trap business, but I always loved that beautiful little mouse trap graphic. And they had a whole shelf of these mouse traps. And I was like, oh, I'm in heaven here. And I love this museum of putting things together in this different way. So when I came back from my trip, I said, we have to have a museum. We have to do a museum. We have so many cool things. And then it kind of got into, what would the item be? What's worthy of having a museum? Would it be a museum of multiple things, or is it a museum of one thing? And then David Wall, our other partner here, my partner at work, was like, we keep talking about rubber chickens. Is that something? Does that have enough? And we started saying like, we said whoopee cushions or poop or whatever, and we just kept coming back to, is there enough to say rubber chickens? And we really started to put together our heads about rubber chickens and the different ones, and we were like, actually, we could do this. And we also have a rotating exhibit because Mark has this incredible collection of items, of historical novelties and all kinds of things that he has in this room that nobody's allowed to go into, called room 6. And so we wanted to kind of try to get him to give up some of that stuff and let us see some of the good stuff from room 6. So we have the Rubber Chicken Museum, and then we have the rotating exhibit from room 6 that Mark personally curates. So I curate sort of the major Rubber Chicken Museum, and he personally curates the room 6 exhibit.
We're going to come back to rubber chickens, but I got to ask, room 6, how did it get named? It's an odd name. So what's the story with room 6?
We had a location for some years in the 90s on a street called Bright Street off of Leary Way in Seattle. And there was a hallway with rooms. And I took a room and started putting my collections and things in it. And you need to have, in a business, you need designations. And I didn't want to put secret museum of extremely valuable collectors. I mean, that would be a tip off for a burglar, right? So right. I just put a Post-it note up and said, room 6, keep out. And so when we moved several times over the years and ended up where we are now in Mukilteo, it just I just took a room and it just was the room 6 room, and everybody knew what it was, so it worked out.
So that's your collection of personal collectibles, mementos, if you will, and then you'll display some of them at the Wallingford store.
Yep. Okay.
How often do you change that out?
Well, it was going to be every 3 months, but it's been about 2 years. And now with coronavirus, God knows when we'll change it out, but it will be changed out.
It will be changed. We have our bin of items for the next exhibit, but we have to write all the museum cards, and it takes a lot of time and history. And it's hard because, we're not able to get together on these kind of things. So it's been other priorities, but we've got the next idea.
So currently, what's in that exhibit? If somebody were to go to your store in the near future, what would they see there? What's on display now in room 6?
There are various novelty items from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. A lot of them, a few from Germany, some from Japan, and they're made of materials that aren't used anymore, like celluloid and actual rubber. And they're terribly charming and terribly interesting. Little delicate paper things. They're just, to me, they're the most beautiful things in the world because, I think about how they were made and the fact that they survived so long, 100 years, and we have them here. And they're just part of this tradition of basically craft items for people to sort of take life less seriously, just use their imagination, and try to make a living,
Sure. Okay. Now that's, somehow this jogged a memory of mine when I was in grade school at a school carnival, and they gave away those chintzy, cheesy prizes. And there was the braided tube that you put your fingers in.
Finger trap.
Why did that trigger that in my brain? I don't know, but it did. And anyway.
I have to tell you, we sell finger traps, and I have rescued so many people out of those. We actually made a little extra instructional video on how to get out of a finger trap.
So help that 8-year-old kid many years ago. How was I supposed to get out of the thing? Because I just remember kind of being in a panic. I'm
people
stuck.
panic. Yeah, we've had criers. We've had all kinds of things.
I don't think I cried. I think I was probably getting pretty close though. I think my mom had to help me.
It's rather upsetting. I've had employees get stuck. New employees get stuck in it too, by the way. It's not just children.
It's quite charming that there is a Star Trek Next Generation episode with Data, who is given one of these things. And, he's like the super genius android, and he gets his finger in them. And even with his super brain, he can't get out of it. And there's something so gratifying about that.
That's awesome. Warning, I'm going to ask a question we didn't talk about before we started. New employee training.
Yes.
You mentioned, new employees get stuck in a finger trap. How is one prepared to work at Archie McPhee? Is there a manual? Is there a training guide, or is it? What's the story there?
Well, there's certainly manuals and training guides and everything else, but a lot of it has to do with having an excitement and a passion for what we do. And also not intimidated by having to memorize, 10,000 items. We have 10,000 items, and you have to know where they are, what they are. Probably 10% of them you need to know the price of. You have to just memorize it. And being able to think in a different way, because we don't have that exact one thing that somebody says, oh, do you have this thing? You have to go, we don't have that, but we have this, this, and that make up that. And you can use this for that. So you have to really be able to think on your feet, and really sort of bring your own style. And one of the things that's such an important part of our jobs is everybody makes it their own. So if they're really good at hand lettering, for example, they will become the sign maker. Or if they're really good at social media, they might be the person. So everybody brings something, and their personal thing that they bring is what their job becomes. So so there's that. And we used to have a series of tests that you had to do when you started, which was, we used to have a nerd test, but everybody is a nerd now. But there used to be a nerd test on the back of our nerd glasses that said things like, do you know what a font is? Well, of course, now everybody knows what a font is. It's harder to see what percentage nerd you are anymore, because all our nerd scores have gone up so much. We used to make people, like we have screwdriver handles. They have a really weird smell. You'd have to go smell the screwdriver handles, do the nerd test, and a few other things. And so that's, the initiation.
Okay. So there is an initiation.
Yeah. It's gentle. Okay. It's
that's kind of cool
gentle.
though. Since you brought that up, I would say it's interesting that smell is really critical in what we do. And that every time we get a new item or we design something, the first thing I do, and everyone does, is you smell it. Yep. And not only does it have to look good, but it has to have a smell that is not too repellent and that is pleasing. And so it's a weird thing, which you can't do in the digigal world. You got to go there.
You got to go there to do it. Well, the other thing we have people do now is to taste our candies, right? So we have weird candies. The one that really stands out to me is the fried chicken candy. It tastes exactly like sweet fried chicken, which is kind of disturbing in a candy, but it's amazing how it tastes, and amazing how people have a different. Some people think it's like the worst candy we sell, and some people think it's the best candy we sell. But yeah, we definitely make people taste weird things too. I mean, make is strong. I guess encourage.
Strongly encourage. Social pressure, just okay.
But just speaking to that about employees, it's hard to say. We look for something special about people who are willing to engage other people, joke with them, put them on, educate them. And you can't really tell that from an interview. And I actually, I like to give people a hard time, and just to sort of see what happens. Like people that say, oh yeah, I used to go to your store in Ballard. That was a decade ago. And Shana has the best answer. It's like, what? You've not been to Wallingford? You're dead to me. Get out.
What have you done for us lately? Thanks a lot.
Because a big part of retail, people need a reason to come, and it has to be somewhat theatrical. And
sure.
So we definitely, I have to tell you, people that have done improv make really great store employees. People who've done improv make really great employees where they have to work with people, in sales and these kinds of things. And it's very interesting kind of what we're looking for.
And it's not always the person who is the wackiest, because sometimes we have people who are like, I'm super wacky. And it doesn't really, we love wacky, but it's not the only thing. You can't just bring that to the table. You have to have some other abilities. I think it's a really challenging place to work, because you have to be good with people. You have to be able to count change back to people, because we're, small business. So we, people can buy things for a literal dollar. So you have to be able to count 5, get change from a 5.
That's almost like a lost art.
It is.
I have to train people on it.
Yeah.
And anything having to do with, we have to stock the sales floor and learn all those things. And you have to be able to lift heavy boxes, and you have to be able to organize things. So and we also have events for people, and we have spin to wins and all kinds of fun things all the time. So
it sounds like it's never a dull moment in the store.
Yeah, it's an experience, and that's one of the things that we're hoping, people appreciate going forward with life, is the experience of being somewhere, not just buying things online.
I think one of the hardest things for staff that everyone will encounter is a lot of parents will bring their children for the first time, and they'll give them $1 or $5, and they say, "Okay, you're on your own, just go." A lot of times, this is, I think, the earliest experience with money for a lot of children is our store.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And they'll spend all this time getting, a little plastic giraffe and a little, doodah and this kind of thing. And they'll bring it up, and they will have done the math, and, it'll be like 99 cents, and they'll give us $1. And then the store person has to say, there's Washington State sales tax, and it's 9.8753. It's like the kid is like, what? Like, this concept of taxation is horribly traumatic event for children.
So how do you guys handle that when the kid comes up with he's got the carefully calculated 97 cents worth of things?
I'll tell you how we handle it. The employee themselves usually reaches into their pocket and puts a dime in to cover it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's wonderful.
But we warn them, next time you got to pay the tax.
Right. Well, yeah, it's a teaching moment.
Absolutely.
But you also made the kid super happy that he got 97 cents worth of stuff. And
although sometimes we get scolded by the parent. No, they have to learn. Here's that dime back.
Okay. Well,
we also have the employee who, now we have been around long enough that we have an employee who was that child, and now is an employee. So she remembers buying things as a kid, and I helped her, like I waited on her as a child, and now she's an employee, and she has things left that she bought in the 90s, with her allowance money, and now she's a store employee. So that's very cool.
Who are you referring to?
Angela.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. She has a devil ducky wastebasket and all these things that she bought with her own money, and she probably didn't have tax money and all that. So it's very cool. But we're really proud of her.
So she of all people should be comping the tax.
That's right. That's right. I'll remind her of that.
So let's go back to the Rubber Chicken Museum.
Yes.
Approximately how many exhibits are in this museum?
Oh, let's see. Let's go with 120.
Okay.
We're keeping adding to it, so we're not taking anything out so far. We just keep adding.
I mean, you have to understand some things are very small. Like there is the world's largest, we have the world's largest rubber chicken, but we also, which is 7 feet tall, we have the world's smallest chicken, which you can only see with a big magnifying glass.
Yeah.
So
and then
we have some very tiny chickens.
And we have the world's second smallest rubber chicken too, because we had the one chicken, it was just not small enough. So we have this world's second smallest rubber chicken and the world's smallest rubber chicken, the world's largest rubber chicken.
Why do we have microscopic rubber chickens?
Listen, why do we have any chickens? It's hilarious.
What was do you know the historical story of the world's smallest rubber chicken? How did it come about?
Well, I just said we needed the world's smallest rubber chicken, and we acquired it.
You acquired it. Okay. Gotcha.
We made it happen, let's say.
Its provenance is well documented.
Right.
Okay.
We have some amazing chickens of note. We have a rubber chicken that was for locals that was signed by JP Patches and Gertrude.
Okay.
We have a Svengoolie for those who are Svengoolie fans. We have a Svengoolie signed rubber chicken, and we are his official rubber chicken supplier. We have a memorial chicken, which a customer. This was one of our actually before we opened the museum. A customer had said that his wife passed and she really loved Archie McPhee and really loved the rubber chicken. And he asked if we would he put her name on a chicken and sent it to us and asked if we would put it up in our store. And that was really, really touching. And we ended up we were excited when we opened the museum because we said, oh, now actually, I mean, we had it in our store hanging, but having it in a museum was really, really lovely. So, it's actually, rubber chickens mean something to people.
I'm pausing because I'm trying to formulate my thought there. I think it's really cool personally. I do. It's just so out of left field for me, I guess, and it was like when I reached out to you guys and you responded back to me, Shana, with the high priestess of rubber chickens, I was just like, oh, I hope they say yes, because this will be a fun conversation. and it just I think it's great. It's irreverent. It's puts a smile on your face. You can't say the word rubber chicken without kind of grinning just a little bit. I mean, you kind of, it's a chuckle. So in the museum, what is the, I don't know, rarest? The world's smallest chicken is probably the rarest, but what is, in the grand scheme of things, are there rare rubber chickens?
There are rare rubber chickens. We have, I think everyone has a different favorite. We have a crushed haunted chicken that was crushed for decades under pallets in our warehouse. And it's on a plate and it's sort of this scary haunted chicken. So some people really love that. And of course, getting your picture with the world's largest rubber chicken is sort of a must. You have to get your picture taken with the world's largest rubber chicken. It just has to happen. And then we also have swag. So like you can get the postcard of the world's largest rubber chicken. We have the Rubber Chicken Museum gift shop, of course.
We have a goofy sign that says, exit here to the gift shop.
Exit through the
basically, obviously the whole place is a gift shop. But, we are in that genre that I love so much of all over the country. And even in the world, I've been to places in France and the UK where some little town who, for some reason, somebody says, I'm going to make the biggest ball of string and put a sign up on the road and, maybe make $1 or $2, or the biggest frying pan, that stuff. It is actually really huge. It's terribly charming, where these people in isolation will try to do something that often they're quite serious about and want to show it to the rest of us. And in this world that is just so fast moving and so digital and data driven, these are like sitting around the campfire telling stories. These are like really primal human behaviors that bring us together and that are very touching and that are accessible to everyone. You don't need an education. You don't need any money. I mean, you can access these things. And one of the things I had planned to do in 2020 was a major road trip all through the U.S. And I was going to hit, because there's a couple of good books out there on the biggest frying pan and all that. I was going to hit all those places because and a lot of those people come to see us too. They're, you probably know about the art cars at the Fremont Solstice Parade. And, a lot of those people will come and see us when they're in town for that. And a lot of them are of that era because they, their car is their museum. And there's a real strange band of brothers kind of things and sisters going on with this thing that is really heartwarming. And I just love it because it's not corporate, it's not Amazon. It's not Google. It's not, it's not all that stuff. It's the people's thing.
I can't imagine Walmart delivering anything to my car like a favorite puppet or something like that.
Yeah.
But Mark, I asked a question earlier that you avoided, so I'm going to come back and see if I can pin you down. What's your favorite item in the store? Shana answered, and we
thank you.
We went off on a tangent, so bring it back.
Do you just mean favorite, or do you mean the one that I would grab if the place was on fire?
No. Favorite. What's your favorite? The thing that you guys sell that you get the most enjoyment out of, that you're proud of?
It's Probably the deluxe finger monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It is in what I call the Hall of Fame. Most of what we do only sells well for a year or two and then fades away. But there's certain things that just always sell, and the finger monsters always sell. But they have a special meaning to me because it was one of the first items I ever marketed in the 80s. And they came from a company who's for the novelty and toy collectors whose logo was called Gigantor. And they kept degrading them. There was what's called quality fade in the novelty business. They kept getting worse. The floppiness of the rubber, it stopped being so floppy, which was the charm of the guy. And the painting got really sloppy. I mean, they paint the eye on the forehead and the whole thing. And I got, I would offer extra money. I would do please make these things well. And, they didn't really care. And it's like, so many of our best items, I developed them out of spite. I call them like the Ganesh, the Hindu god of overcoming obstacles. It was a Ganesh items. Okay, you're messing with me. You pissed me off. I will make this thing. I will make this thing better than you, and I will sell more of these things, and I will triumph, and I will conquer this item, and we will be what the world comes to, and which is exactly what happened with the deluxe finger monsters. Our own art guys, we worked really hard on this. We named them. We argued about color schemes. We studied the polymers of the plastic, and we did all this technical stuff. We paid a lot of money for these custom molds, and that's our thing now. And nobody touches us with this. I mean, we got the best thing, and it was all because, people let me down. And that's true on several other items like that have become kind of the foundation of the company. Because it's a very risky thing to do something like that, particularly when we were much smaller. I mean, if it didn't work out, it might have meant the end of the company.
And now it's one of our top sellers of all time.
Yeah.
Probably the top seller.
So you mentioned the Hall of Fame. Through the years, you've launched products.
Yes.
Has there been one spectacular failure that you thought for sure was going to be, the hit, and that the market just didn't respond?
There have been many of those, and I try to black them out.
I'm sorry.
It's painful. It's really painful, and I'm sorry you brought it up. But I'll tell you one that we were talking about the other day. Is at the beginning of the internet in the mid 90s. And, we had our website in 1995 before Amazon did. They've obviously done a lot better than we have. But there was all this thing about, people being addicted to video games and the internet and all that stuff in the 90s. That's kind of faded away now that we are all already addicted. But I found a urinal, a plastic urinal like truck drivers would use, who couldn't get to a bathroom. And then I screened a little logo of like a guy in front of his screen and the words internet urinal on the urinal. And I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And it was really practical and really useful. I mean, I still keep one in my car because I've been stuck on traffic jams on I-5 when we used to have traffic, and it's saved my life. But it was a spectacular failure that took about 10 years to sell out at a loss. That was one of them.
Yeah, okay. But people do still ask for that item. So you always get that passionate few, but sometimes it's just not enough.
That's, oh my gosh. All right. So the one question, all right. So to double back, you've told us your favorite. Now, if Archie McPhee store was burning,
not good, it's not happening.
Right. But if everybody was safe and you could take only one thing from the store, what would you take?
I would take this creature we call the Wallingford Beast, which is something we created when we opened the store, and it's kind of a combination of, or maybe you're familiar with P.T. Barnum's Fuji Mermaid, where they kind of glued.
No.
There's one at the Yield Curiosity Shop, I think, down on the waterfront, but it's basically kind of like a skeleton head with the body of a cockroach and some aspects of a fish and a monkey, and it's this made up creature, and we call it the Wallingford.
No, we found that creature when we moved to Wallingford. Okay. It was living underneath the. Oh. We found it in a hole right in the boneyard.
Yeah, I'm completely mistaken. Shana is absolutely right. It was a real creature that was scuttling around that abandoned liquor store that we took over. Yes. I don't know what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
But we have it in a locked plexiglass container with warning signs and a big padlock on it. And, we like to have little kids get up close to it and kind of tell them, don't get too close. And, that's a lot of fun. But it's such a delightfully goofy, ridiculous thing. And it kind of reminds me of like the alien in Alien. And I would grab it. I would grab it and run out the door, and I would hold it close to my heart and say, I saved you, beast. I saved you. That's what I would do.
Shana, how about you?
Well, okay, this is really hard. So I guess I'm just I can't take the whole museum with me. So I guess I would just have to drag out that world's largest rubber chicken. I'd have to, because I can't take the whole museum.
You could be burned to death. That thing weighs
drag that thing. I know, but I just have to drag that thing. It's so important, and I love it so much. And I'd have to just somehow get it out. And so we have double doors. I'd have to figure it out. Maybe I'd have to roll it. I don't know.
So you would take the 7-foot rubber chicken.
I think I'd have to.
So, all right. How did you guys procure a 7-foot rubber chicken?
Nadia made it. I said, we have to have the world's largest rubber chicken. And Nadia, who works at our store, as I said, store people have amazing talents. And one of hers apparently is building giant rubber chickens. She didn't know this was a talent of hers, but we soon learned it was. And we have a wonderful fast video of showing how it was built. But she did it. It's incredible. I love it so much. And it's so funny because at first it wasn't big enough and we realized it had to be bigger. So it is 7 feet tall and it is a marvel. And we built it up in our warehouse. We had to use the forklift to move it from one location to the next. It was quite a feat getting it down to the store from our warehouse. And now everybody's got to get the pictures with it. And it's just wonderful. I love it so much. And by the way, when she always jokes with me because I said to her, every time she's working on it, I was like, Nadia, you're making chicken money right now. So her favorite thing on this earth is to make chicken money.
I do love the image, though, Shana, of if there was, God forbid, with Wallingford burned, that we're standing out in the middle of 45th. You have the giant chicken that you're struggling to keep upright, and I have the Wallingford beast clutched to my bosom, and it's sort of like we're all that's left of Earth, and we will have to rebuild society and agriculture and food production with these creatures.
Yep, that's how it'll start.
Yep,
it's all the ingredients we need, really.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you say you're claiming that the 7-foot rubber chicken is the world's largest rubber chicken.
Prove it's not.
I was just going to ask, how big is the second largest? I mean, how did we get to that? Or did you?
I'm going to say the world's second largest chicken is something like 21 inches or something like that. Now there's people who like have rubber chicken costumes,
right? But we're talking a real
actual chicken. Right. There's nothing close to that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The commercial one, our nickname is the squalling chicken, is about 2 feet or 2.5 feet or so. That is very popular. It makes sound.
Right.
And I think that's the largest commercial rubber chicken that I'm
Biggest
aware
and
of.
loudest.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Which we sell, of course.
So you said that you've had a website since the early, mid 90s. So you were right there really when there was this divide where the internet was supposed to be free, and how dare you make money on the internet. Remember back in the day when there was this, people were held in contempt for selling on the internet. It should be free. And now look at it. Do you guys, I think the internet's awesome because some kid in Clearwater, Florida can buy a rubber chicken from you. He can order it and you guys will ship it, to him. Right. So but it's not the same experience, but yet your website's kind of got that same sort of, it's kind of got a kitschy feel to it. I like that. Do you guys like being on the web? I guess is a question. Do you guys think of creative ways of making the website fun and cool, or is it a necessary evil, if you will?
I think we both have opinions about this. I'm going to just, one thing I will say, and I think Mark probably has a lot more about it, but we are reaching our kind of weirdos. And that's the biggest thing that's cool for us. Obviously, it expands our ability to be a business because we can sell to all these people, but we are connecting as if we're in a club with all these weirdos around all of the US. And that is important to us. We have super fans who subscribe to everything that we do, and we have people who it means something, and we send catalogs out. And one of my very favorite stories is there's this woman who contacted us, and she lives in a very remote small town in the US. And she said, "Hey, does anybody else in my town order your catalog?" And we can't give out addresses of our customers. We can't give our contact information of our customers. And she goes, "Oh, no, I don't want their contact information. I just want to know that I'm not alone." And I feel like that's what we provide. We're saying, no, you're part of us. And she was so excited when we said, yes, somebody else in your town orders from us. And she's like, oh, I love my town. And she was happy. And that's what we can do.
So in a way, then isn't the website kind of like the back of the comic book from when I was a kid, and you could order, the X-ray glasses and all of that stuff?
I still call the online retail business mail order. Mail order is an old-fashioned, thing because we started in mail order. I would advertise in classified ads, and I would add, it was all print, just like the comic book thing. And, it would come by mail, and people would write us checks, and sometimes we'd get envelopes full of pennies and quarters and dimes from kids. It was how it was. So, I don't have a spin or some kind of, the internet is the evolution of our lives, and it's in everything now. And for us, my only plea is I would like a level playing field, because I do believe the big tech companies have monopolistic practices that just crush and control small business. But that's another story. And unfortunately, the Department of Justice and Congress are too stupid to figure out that this is going on, or they don't care. But I'm neutral about the internet in the sense that, it's our catalog is on a screen, and you can, and you use a mouse and you look through it. It's pretty efficient, and it gets better and better. But the big thing, though, and this is what will save us, is we can reach the tribe. The tribe is that woman that wanted so much to know that in her zip code, there was another human being. She didn't care what gender it was, but just thought like her, that thought this was funny. And that is what, and through this COVID crisis, the only thing that's growing is the website, the retail website. Everything else we're just crushed, and we're going to be a smaller company in the future, but we will survive because of the website, because of that ability to reach people. Talk about social distancing. I mean, and safe commercial activity.
Yeah.
No, I love the attitude about it, because I do think it's cool that on my screen here I'm looking at the Rubber Chicken Madness jigsaw puzzle. And the reason I'm looking at this is because my mother asked me yesterday if we had any jigsaw puzzles that she could put together. And the answer was, no, I don't have any in the house. Well, I'm going to be ordering one here in a little bit, and it'll be a rubber chicken jigsaw puzzle delivered to her. And from the looks of it, she's going to have a hard time.
I tell you, I have done that puzzle myself. We have 5 different puzzles that we sell, and that is the most challenging. But I did it. It can be done. So tell your mother I said it can be done.
I'm going to. It's going to be. I think it's awesome, and so I'm gonna order one here, and because I'm not going to drive over to Seattle today to pick it up, but so I can participate in Archie McPhee from the internet, and I think that's cool. So to wrap up, the goal of my podcast is we talk about Washington State, cool things that are going on. So in the Wallingford area, when you're out and about, do you have cool neighbors around the store?
We do have some cool neighbors. We definitely do. We have Bizarro Italian Cafe is right around the corner from us, which is sort of like, it's a funny thing. It's almost like an Archie McPhee style restaurant. They have our same sort of aesthetic and vibe. And they're super fun to work with. And like, we have little neighborly things, like they can have somebody, waiting for their reservation, send them over to Archie McPhee. They can call us up and we'll send them over, that kind of stuff. We have Molly Moon's ice cream nearby. Fantastic. Yummy. And the Bounty across the street is the coffee shop that we always communicate with and talk about, like, how late are you guys staying open? Also, they've used our games in their coffee shop. Like they play the Crazy Cat Lady game and the Mr. Bacon game. They have them available. We gave them those. Right next door to us is the Wallingford Boys and Girls Club. And we, right now we're selling these really cool masks with your favorite item, rubber chickens on them. And 20% of the sales of that are going to the Wallingford Boys and Girls Club. So we were able to give them their first check the other day. Yeah.
So you guys are okay. So wait a second. Let's just not bypass this. So the rubber chicken masks are available.
Yep.
And you're donating 20% to the Wallingford Boys and Girls Club.
Yes.
I'll put a link in the show notes to that. So if somebody buys it off the website, you'll do the same thing?
Yep, absolutely.
So we can put a link to that so that somebody wants to do something, because that's a great cause. Now, on a side note, are those masks acceptable to wear in public as far as COVID goes? Can I go shopping with a rubber chicken mask on?
It's encouraged.
Encouraged? Okay, I think I'll order one of those as well, then, just because there's been this whole debate with my beard that the mask isn't doing anything anyway. It's like, and it's not long enough to fold up over to be a mask.
Right.
But if I can have some fun with it, I think a rubber chicken mask would be fun too.
I think that's the thing about wearing masks is this is going to be a part of our lives for so long. I think making them fun accessories is the way to get it to be palatable for everyone.
I think so.
And then it still expresses something about ourselves.
Talking about the Wallingford neighborhood, which is such a great neighborhood, I'm also quite charmed. There's one of those cat cafes on the next block where you go, and for a fee or the price of a cup of coffee, you go into a room and they have all these cats that you can pet, and they'll sit on your lap and purr. And if you want, you can actually adopt one. But it's actually quite a viable business, and I mean, I don't know how viable it is. There are a lot of these things around the world. I think they started in Japan, where in Japan they've got there's like a hedgehog place and all these cool places you can go and hang out with these animals. But cats are probably the dominant after chickens creature for our company. We have so many cat items, and I mean, we own the cat space,
the category.
The category.
But so it's nice that
bump.
there's unfortunately they've had to, of course, shut down because of COVID. But one day they'll be open and you can go sit with a cat. And I think that's just, I love, again, it's like the museum for the world's largest frying pan. I mean, this is a real basic human activity and thing that people can do. So I vote
Sorry.
yes.
On a side note, my cat was just chewing on my sunglasses. Who's off camera, and I had to stop him.
Of course.
Yeah,
Cats are the best.
Yeah, he's an interesting little guy. Yeah, when Archie made the world's largest apple pie, they have a sign when you drive into Wenatchee, the home of the world's largest apple pie in 1997 or something like that. So we're very proud of it.
What was the second largest apple pie?
Probably made in Kashmir. I don't know. I mean, but the Guinness Book of World Records probably came out and met. I mean, that's the whole thing. There's the Guinness Book of World Records. When I was a kid, Ripley's Believe It or Not, all those crazy things that people have been, we're interested, we're fascinated by. So,
yeah.
So Shana, we'll wrap it up. Mark, is anything you'd like to say before we go? And thank you for being on. This has been incredibly enjoyable for me, and it's been informative. And I will come over and visit one of these days.
Well, I hope you do, and we'll try to give you a hard time and a good time.
I would be disappointed if you guys didn't give me a bad time. I mean, a hard time. It would be, I'd be offended, frankly. But Shana, if you have Archie McPhee has a podcast.
Yes, we have a podcast. Thanks for mentioning it. That's nice.
Tell us more.
So it's called Less Talk, More Monkey, the Archie McPhee podcast. And it's David Wall and Hef, who's the David Wall, director of Awesome, and Hef, whose hands are the model for the finger hands, and myself, High Priestess of Rubber Chickens. And then we have wonderful guests like Mark has done some. Actually, our most popular episodes are the ones with Mark because he's got the cool stories. And but we talk about behind the scenes stuff about product development, and we talk about upcoming products and popular culture. And thanks. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
So how often do you guys publish the podcast?
Well, we did publish it about approximately once a week, but during these times, we've only done one since the quarantine. So we're looking forward to getting back to that. But we have a good backlog with tons of cool information in it and just funny stories. We talk about all kinds of strange things and strange histories, and we have some cool guests on it too.
Very cool. So we'll put a link to that also in the show notes. And so why don't you tell everybody where you guys can be found, both physical and online, so that if they don't know, they can find you.
Okay, we are at the corner of 45th and Stoneway in the Wallingford neighborhood of Seattle. And we've got that nice corner spot with our own parking lot even, which is very rare in that neighborhood or any neighborhood in Seattle. And we still offer curbside, and we have the store curbside pickup. And of course, the free Rubber Chicken Museum is inside the store with a pressed penny machine. You can get a little souvenir. And then if you can't get into the store, we are at McPhee.com. That's MCPHEE.com. And that's where you can get our stuff and a lot of wonderful little souvenirs and stories. And we have a cool blog. And obviously, we're on all social media. We have Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and anything else you can imagine.
You guys are on TikTok?
Yeah, we even have TikTok.
Okay. So last question, I promise. What's your favorite social media platform for Archie McPhee? Where do you guys, what resonates with you guys?
I think Instagram. Instagram is fun because it's sort of got it all. You can tell a story, you can show stuff. the staff can just be inspired to just do some funny little thing and do some quick little story, or you can kind of get more in depth. I don't know. They're all pretty good.
And I would say Twitter, more towards the fact I have my own Twitter, McPhee CEO is the handle that I'll always remember the guy that started Twitter years ago. In an interview, they said, "Why did you do this thing?" And he said, "I did it so people would be less lonely, that this would be a mechanism." And I think, again, in a way, Twitter is like the giant Archie McPhee tribe, where you can get, there's all this weirdness and trolling and all that stuff, but you can have unbelievable experiences and conversations with people. And I mean, sometimes I'll just spend hours and I'll be having little interchanges with like William Gibson in Vancouver and famous writers and scientists and people. People are surprisingly accessible on Twitter, if you know where they are and if they're doing it and if they're active. And there's certain people that really like Twitter. And this is, again, like, I'd never be able to really meet these people, but I can give my opinion. I can say something funny. I can ask a question. And, that's another thing I wanted to do on a road trip, would be to actually contact all these people I've met on Twitter and go see if they'd have a drink with me. I mean, kind of weird, but it's another like road trip kind of thing. It's like, instead of having X number of friends, they're not friends, they're acquaintances, I suppose. But I like Twitter. I like it. It's immediate. You do something and, at 3:00 in the morning, and bam, you're going to have a dozen people from around the world respond to it. There's something really great about that, to me personally.
I disagree with you in the sense that I don't think it's weird at all that you'd go and, if you went up to Vancouver and asked William Gibson if he'd have a drink with you, and if he said yes, that'd be cool,
wouldn't it?
I mean, I don't think it's weird. I think if you've had a dialogue with this individual through years, right, or weeks or whatever, and you pull up to Missoula, Montana, and there's somebody there, and you say, "Hey, I'm going to be in Missoula today. Cup of coffee." I don't think that's weird. I think that's a great way of taking that online relationship and transferring it into the real world. And Twitter's a great platform for that. And I think it'd be a lot of fun to do that. I mean, I've met some great people online that we've converted into, real world, conversations. And when I come to town, type thing. So, I think that's awesome. So, well, I'm going to wrap this up because this has gone along. I appreciate you guys both for being on the podcast. We'll get it out there and we'll let you know when it's going. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will talk at a later time.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.